They told me there was a horrible incident. My son and his girlfriend, Anya, basically were burned alive in their car.
She was my daughter. He said Anya's name. I said, yes, it's my daughter. My wife came downstairs and she was screaming and crying. She said, no, 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 no.
Greetings, and welcome to Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Today we bring you yet another tragic story, a heartbreaking consequence of failed leadership, of course, here in the state of California. I want you to take a moment and imagine this. You're a parent. You pick up the phone and hear the unthinkable. Your 19-year-old son and his girlfriend have just been burned alive in a car crash. Why? Because someone who shouldn't even be in this country was driving drunk. Once again, we are faced with the grim reality of what happens when our immigration laws are ignored and accountability is tossed aside. This isn't just a policy issue, folks. This is a human tragedy. 3 years ago, a man had been deported multiple times. A repeat offender. He illegally re-entered the United States and ended up behind the wheel drunk. The result? 2 innocent young lives gone in an instant. They were both just 19 years old. Their futures? Stolen. This man was convicted. This man was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Justice. Well, that's what you might think, but not quite. Because now, only 3 years later, California is letting him out early. And why? What justification does the state have? And what about the families left shattered by this loss? What about the message it sends to criminals who cross our borders unlawfully? Those who cross unlawfully and cause harm? According to the Department of Homeland Security data, over 500,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records were encountered at the border between 2021 and 2023. And yet, sanctuary policies in cities like Los Angeles continue to protect these individuals at the expense of law-abiding citizens. This is not about race. This isn't about politics. It's about public safety and common sense. It's about justice. And it's about demanding accountability from those who are supposed to protect us. Take a look at this.
Today on the heartbreaking story about an illegal immigrant convicted in a DUI crash that killed 2 teenagers 3 years ago. Now set for an early release from prison in California. Maybe. The Trump administration heard about it. It's now pursuing felony immigration charges against him. My next guest says he faces up to 20 years in federal prison if convicted. Bill Asaley is the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. Bill, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. Governor Newsom apparently is waving in the feds on this as well. Let me read you part of his statement and you can react to it. He says, after being deported in 2013, this individual unlawfully re-entered the U.S. and committed heinous crimes. A GOP DA then gave him a plea deal instead of pursuing second-degree murder. CDCR, which is the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, will again coordinate with ICE as they have with 10,000 plus inmates to transfer him before release. What is your take on this now as it stands at the moment, Bill? Go ahead.
I think it's completely shameful for the governor to try to deflect on this. This individual, who is a criminal illegal alien who killed 2 innocent teenagers, was sentenced to a 10-year state prison term. And sentence was delivered by the judge in Orange County. He's only 3 years into his sentence, and the prison is releasing him. The prison is operated by the governor. Governor Newsom is solely responsible for operating the prison and allowing his release, but this is the name of the game in California. They've been releasing prisoners for a decade. We have half as many prisoners in California as we did a decade ago, and this is the policy up in Sacramento. So it's just unconscionable for him to deflect like this.
Yeah, Tom Homan was with us yesterday. We asked him about it on our program here. Watch.
And I guarantee you, if they don't honor a detainer, we have ICE agents outside that facility to take custody of this individual and deport him. He's been deported several times, which means he's a felon. We're trying to remove these public safety threats and national security threats as quick as possible. They're putting every roadblock imaginable in front of us to prevent us from doing that.
Now, at this point, one would have to ask the obvious question. Why would Governor Gavin Newsom, or any leader for that matter, go out of their way to keep felonious illegal aliens in the country? And even more disturbing, why would he release a man who murdered 2 people behind the wheel of a car a full 7 years before his sentence is up? Only Governor Newsom knows the real answer to that. But if we're being honest, most of us already feel the truth deep down inside. We feel it in our gut. It's the chilling realization that he just doesn't care. Not about justice, not about victims, and certainly not about public safety. Every move he makes is coldly calculated, not for the people, but for political gain. Every policy, every press conference, every photo op is designed to boost his image, to advance his career, to win favor among elite donors and partisan activists. We as citizens have to realize this is not leadership. It's self-promotion, dressed up as governance. And as for the people, the working class families, the grieving parents, the frightened neighborhoods, they don't even exist in his equation. To him, the only thing that matters is him.
Bill, the way I said, this is one of these worst case situations with illegals. Multiple illegal entrants that resulted in the death of an American citizen.
This is what happens when you have an open border policy like we did in the prior administration. But those days are over. Under this administration, our borders are closed, and I've made it a top priority in my office, and I know throughout the United States, to enforce our immigration laws. So this defendant, he's not going to get free. He's not going to be deported. He's coming to my jurisdiction, and we're going to prosecute him. And once he's convicted, he's going to spend many years in federal prison, and then he'll be deported again.
You heard the criticism that the governor had toward the judge. This Pew survey that came out a few weeks ago, just read it here. The percentage of those who say they're confident in the judges in the United States federal courts. Here's what we found. 44% not to or not at all. 39% said somewhat. What's that tell us about the rule of law in America and the measure of confidence?
Here in America, it's becoming more and more obvious, disturbingly obvious, that far too many judges are no longer serving the cause of justice. In fact, it appears that some are being, dare I say, paid off, pressured, or even coerced into making decisions that are clearly not fair and, to be honest, not even really legal. We're talking about rulings that fly in the face of logic, precedent, and even basic morality. And you have to ask yourself, why would someone who spent their entire life in the legal system suddenly start making decisions that are so blatantly egregious? These judges are risking everything, their careers, their reputation, even potential jail time. So what's really going on here? Well, to me, this suggests something far more sinister that's occurring in the background, because none of it makes any common sense. For someone with decades on the bench to suddenly throw out the rule book, someone has to be pulling the strings behind the scenes, and if it's not coercion, then it must be threats to their livelihood, threats to their family, or perhaps their freedom. And here's what's most chilling. They're doing this all out in the open, right in front of us. No shame, no secrecy. It's almost as if they believe they are untouchable, or worse, as if they've been brainwashed, MK Ultra'd, or even hypnotized. Now, I know some of this sounds crazy, but the alternative is even scarier. Either way, we the people, the citizens of this great country, must pay close attention. We cannot afford to look the other way anymore, because every time a corrupt or compromised judge makes a backward, upside-down ruling, real lives are being destroyed. Families are being broken. Communities are being harmed. Justice denied. It's time for us to speak out, vote them out, demand integrity from the bench before it's too late.
Well, I think that probably has more to do with these judges granting injunctions nationwide every time the president tries to enact a mandate that the American people asked him to do. That's probably coming more from that than anything else. But also in California, they've appointed a lot of liberal judges who are just very light on sentencing, and the governor appoints most of those judges. So again, to the extent he's critical of anything that happens in the state of California, he's the governor and he's at the helm. So he needs to point that blame at himself.
Yeah, how much attention does this story get in your state?
It's a big story, and it's devastating. I feel so bad for that family. Can you imagine to lose two 19-year-olds,
No.
their whole life ahead of them, and to learn on Easter that this murderer that murdered their kids is going to be let out after 3 years? That's a joke. It's harming them all over again. It's an injustice, and I hope that by us charging him and making sure that he serves an adequate time, at least in federal prison, it'll bring a sense of justice to this family.
Here in California, Newsom, Karen Bass, both of them have proven to be two of the most corrupt and reckless political figures in recent memory. And let me be clear, this wasn't some sort of paperwork era as they'd like us to believe. No, this was policy. This was a deliberate decision, crafted, approved, and carried out straight from the top, right out of Sacramento. But what does Newsom do? As always, he points fingers in every direction at the judge, the Republican district attorney, and even federal authorities. Everyone but himself. Here's the truth. Gavin Newsom is the one in charge of California's prison system. He is the one responsible for letting this killer out early. And even a U.S. attorney from California said it plainly. Governor Newsom is solely responsible. And you know what? He's right. Instead of standing up for justice, Newsom's policies are actively letting violent criminals walk free. Just like this man who already had a criminal record, who already had been deported multiple times, and who took the lives of two innocent 19-year-olds. Now the federal government has to step in. The U.S. attorney is filing federal charges that could put this man away for more than 20 years. Why? Because California, under Gavin Newsom, refuses to do his or its job. But let's be honest, Newsom could care less. That should be obvious to anyone who's paying attention. Newsom is highly protected. He's insulated by power, by money, and political privilege. That's the only reason he's still in office. Anyone else would have been held accountable, or worse, crucified by the media by now. Just look around. Look at the state of this once great city. Look at the state of California. And here's what cuts the deepest. This family of grieving parents who found out on Easter Sunday that the man who murdered their children is getting out early. Imagine that heartbreak. Imagine the rage. It's a slap in the face. It's emotional cruelty delivered by the system itself. This is what happens when politics get in the way of public safety, when the governor cares more about looking progressive than doing what's right, when incompetence and corruption paved the road to tragedy, not once, but twice. Governor Newsom may be on his way out, but the damage has already been done. I'm Wolf Kage, and this is Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until the next time, peace.